Afterthought Sock Heel Part 2. So in Part 1 I put in this green waste yarn here as a placeholder, and what I've now done is I've knit both socks beyond that point, and the first sock I've added the heel, and you can see here the heel is just the same as another toe, except the toe is knit from the toe up and the heel is knit from here down, but it's pretty much the same shaping. And if you're wondering how to work out where to put this line for an Afterthought heel, a good guideline is to measure the length of your toe on the sock, and that's going to be the length of your heel, because you normally decrease down to the same number of stitches, and the length of the toe is going to be the distance back from the heel that you put this waste yarn placeholder ready. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut the knot on this here, and then just carefully, one stitch at a time, this is where it's good to have contrast yarn, one stitch at a time, remove these. Now if you're timid about these things, you can, as they come loose, pop them on a needle. Grab another needle around here. Normally I don't bother, they tend not to come undone, they don't race to the end of the toe like a ladder in pantyhose or anything, they just hang around. Worst case scenario is one stitch comes undone, that's easy to do up. So it's just carefully undoing. And you can see above and below where that stitching was, there's a set of loops, and those will be the loops we'll pick up. I use a spare DPM to do this. At the moment I want to knit until I've run out of sock yarn, so I've cut my yarn off the top here, and I'm just going to work the heel, and then I'll go back and rejoin the yarn and knit until I have no more. So these wee socks will be as long as they possibly can, given the 50 grams of yarn that I'm working with. So here I'm just unpicking the last few stitches of waste yarn. It's always tempting just to pull the yarn and let it slip out, but my experience tells me that it just tightens everything up. So these last ones, having said that, I will pull that. Okay. And this one here, pick this one up before it disappears. I don't worry too much about which way round they are on the needle. I just slip them all on a needle. I'll sort them all out as I knit them. Half on that needle, half on this needle. I like to work with a set of 5 DPMs, so I'll just keep picking these up. That's all of the stitches picked up. Now I've got a wee trick here. If you look at the end, there's almost an extra row of stitching here. Just go in there and create 2 extra stitches at each end, and then make sure I don't split the yarn. So I've got, that's a picked up stitch and that's a picked up stitch that wasn't there before. Put them both on the left hand needle, pick the second stitch up and bring it over, but don't let it drop off. So I've crossed those stitches over there, and that will tighten the gap. And that's what I've done down here on this one here, and you can see they cross over and it tightens the gap neat. So I'll repeat that on this side over here. Here's my gap. You can see there's quite a wee bit of space here with no stitches. So I'm going to go in and pick up that stitch, or the side of that stitch. I'm going to pick up that stitch there, turn it round. I think it would look better it's facing the other way. Put them both on the left hand needle, pick the second one up, and pass it over. So they've crossed over and tightened that gap up. I like to start knitting heels from the sock, from the sole side of the sock. So find your yarn. I always put a slip knot on the needle just to keep things tight. I have to remember that it's not a stitch, it's just a slip knot, and then it's a question of knitting round one complete row. So knit. Now that one's the wrong way around, so I'm going to knit into the back of it, and I'm going to, when I picked it up I didn't pick up all the loops. So this first round is just a wee bit fiddly as you sort the stitches out that you picked up. So knitting all the way around. And that last one, which is a wee bit tight because it's one of those crossed over ones. I will leave that out as my marker and I'll take it through to the back and weave it in later. So that first one there was my slip knot. So it just comes off now. Knit one, slip, slip, knit. Knit to the end of the sole, knit to the last 3 stitches of the sole stitches, and knit 2 together. And then repeat that on the instep. Knit a plain round and a decrease round. And you can see the knitting ends up being seamless. You can't tell where I was knitting in the round for the sock before and where. So it's my last 3 stitches and where I'm knitting the new yarn in. And knit those 2 together and knit. So that's the first decrease done on the sole, and then I'll do the same on the instep. And part 3 will be grafting the centre of the heel together.